What's up guys, it's Miroku back with some more League content, and this time we're got another tier list going for patch 12.8 onwards. Now you guys might say that, hey, you didn't make one for patch 12.7, hey, what gives? The answer to that is, when I saw that patch, the changes, although there were a few that were impactful, they didn't really change the position of anyone on the tier list practically. And I didn't want to make the same exact video as 12.6, so I decided to wait until the 12.8 changes were, announced at least. And now I'm going to basically make a tier list video with all that into consideration, so that it's also a bit future-proofed. But yeah, let's just get right into it. Starting off with Aatrox as usual, AA. He's in the strong tier, very playable champion, very powerful in solo queue. If you can play it right, he can do a lot of just work in team fights and stuff, and in early skirmishes, because his Q, AoE, being so massive, lets him be a monster in skirmishes where it's like you and your jungler versus the enemy top laner and his jungler, or any kind of multi, not a team fight, but a fight with a lot of champions, right? So yeah, Aatrox is pretty good in the game right now. He could be doing better, but the main reason he's down here is because the higher champions on this tier list just destroy him, right? And that's the case with everybody down here, right? And yeah, well, almost everybody. Okay, next we got Akali. Akali is in the good situational tier. Her power after her level 6, where she gets her ultimate, is immense, right? She has one of the best level 6 power spikes in the entire game, just an absolute monster. But until then, she's not that powerful. And in top lane, the way you play your first 3-4 levels is basically the most important, right? The early game kind of defines what top lane is going to do for the entirety of the later portions of the game. So if you are playing her Akali into a matchup where she can't survive, or God forbid get fed, then perfect, right? But she can't really match up to some of the champions who are not only powerful later on, but also powerful during the first few levels, right? She can't really match up to a lot of them. Akshan is overpowered. Just, I don't think I need to say anything else. He's a ranged champion, and he's given all the tools he needs to just play top lane at least safely. But on top of all of that, he can just roam on command. And the thing about Akshan's roams is that because he's invisible, he is even more devastating in a normal chaotic solo queue environment, right? It's a lot of the times when he roams, you realize it too late, okay? So Akshan's roams are kind of difficult to keep an eye out for. Let's say if there's one person who's not focusing on the team, Akshan is going to be able to kill that guy 10 times and get fed and come back to the lane and just murder you. So yeah, if you have the macro to abuse that, Akshan is a really nice champion to abuse for some nice LP. Camille is pretty overpowered. Her Sheen power spike items like her Triforce, her Divine Thunder are way too powerful. She has way too much use out of that, and if she can basically survive the laning phase to get to those items, she is an unstoppable monster. Cho'Gath, I'd say, is a good / situational kind of pick. He's in the very bottom of this B tier, right? He's about to fall down into the depths of C tier, right? Because a lot of the mobility and things of League kind of ruined Cho'Gath, because his whole thing is just landing his rupture, right? And if he can't land that, then he's practically useless as a champion, because that's all he has, right? But if he can land his abilities, and better yet, if you can pick him into a team where you can get a lot done with his silence, right? And remember, silences are very underrated in the current meta of League of Legends, because a lot of champions are about going in and pressing a bunch of buttons and then just killing everyone. But if you can get that silence in there, that champion is just stuck, can't cast any abilities, you can CC them and kill them no problem, right? So yeah, let's say you're up against the Master Yi. His thing is that if he presses Q, he's invulnerable, but if Cho'Gath silences him or something, then somebody else can throw their CC in and catch the Master Yi definitively, because he can't Q out of it, right? Or to dodge it. So then it just guarantees that champion's death. In a sense, he can do it against a lot of the other champions too. Kiana, if he gets that silence off before she can go invisible, just a lot of things you can do with his silence. So if you pick him into the right comp, he's perfect. But he just kind of struggles to match up to a lot of these champions, and also his whole playstyle is a bit getting phased out, because being just a skill shot champion is not really enough anymore, unless you have range. Cassiopeia is a pretty solid counter pick, right? You really need to pick her into a champion she just straight bullies, otherwise you're just gonna get blasted, right? And she's also among all of the ranged top laners, she's one of the biggest jungler foods out there. She's just such a free kill for a lot of junglers. But, you know, in a more of a sulky environment, I guess you can't really count on that too much. But yeah, if you pick her into like a champion, like I said, she counters, she is going to have a great time getting fed and snowballing the game, because Cassiopeia actually can just straight 1v9 because of how much damage she does. And she does take a bit of skill to play, right? It's like the difference between a bad Cassio and a good Cassio is absolutely massive. But if you can kind of overcome that, then you can get a solid champion. They pick a Darius, boom, get the Cassio in there, just, you know, completely 1v9 in the game. Speaking of Darius is, I'd say, in the overpowered tier for now. The old buffs just made him really strong in a lot of circumstances as opposed to before. But, like, they didn't do it in a way where he's, like, overtly overpowered, if that makes sense, right? Like, he is just useful and able to carry in more situations, but his weaknesses are still his weaknesses. So it's like, he's in the very bottom of this overpowered tier, because a lot of these champions are overpowered because of how generally powerful they are, right? It's like you can drop Camille or an Akshan into any situation, any team comp, any sort of match, and if you play properly, you can get a lot of work done. But Darius, it's like in some games, you just drop him in there and he's going to be completely useless, right? So it's like, you know, or you drop him into the right games and he's going to basically 1v9 in the game. So he's still situational, but he's still overpowered. Like, it's like bottom row overpowered, but his overpoweredness is in situationalness instead of like general usefulness like the rest of these champions, basically. Dr. Mundo. Mundo's a lane holder. He can't really carry that much. He can't really snowball. He can't really do a lot of the stuff that like most champions can do, really. Like, Mundo just exists to basically farm when you're getting weak-sided. That is it. Like, legit. All he does is just be difficult to kill on a jungle gang because of his passive and his ultimate. He can just, you know, get CC, tank it, and then just run away with his ult. That is all he can do. Now, he does scale quite well in that, like, once he does survive to get, like, a few items, he just runs up to ADCs and just, you know, bops them for 2 hits and kills them. But until then, Mundo can't really do that much earlier on. And, like, you know, his matchups aren't even that great. Like, he can survive in the matchups, but he just can't win them or snowball them. But that's kind of his purpose at this point. He's a lane holder. Fiora. Fiora is a god tier pick. She is completely overpowered, right? A lot of great matchups. She can just weasel her way out of bad matchups as well. She can basically destroy anybody. And this is given that, like, most Fiora players don't even play Fiora properly, right? It's like her riposte is such an overpowered ability that Fiora players just use it offensively instead of blocking anything, and they still win all in. Because like a lot of top laners are all attack based, and when you use riposte, it slows them all attack slow, and just basically like neuters a lot of champions in what they're trying to do, right? So it's like you don't need to block anything, and you'll just straight kill them if you hit enough vitals, right? So it's like Fiora is, I think, right now crossing the threshold where, like, you don't need to play her that well to actually climb with her because she's just that overpowered, right? And it's honestly sad because the champion is a very high skill ceiling, so you get a bunch of monkeys on her abusing her for free LP. So that sucks, but, you know, it is how the game is right now. Gangplank. I'd say Gangplank is in the strong tier right now. I wouldn't say he's, like, overpowered like most people are saying he is, right? If we're considering all elos, right, he's in the strong tier. If we're considering only high elo, yeah, he's definitely overpowered. But, like, you know, in some of the lower ranks, it's going to be a bit more tricky to pull off Gangplank because he's just, like I said, a trickier champion to pull off. So, like, you know, because of the skill, you need to kind of play him because of, like, how, you know, he's not the most independent earlier on, let's say. You know, he can get intercepted and just messed up. He does fall short in some of the lower ranks, but if you're playing with competent people and you are yourself also competent, then he's completely overpowered. But I'm putting him in A tier just for the case of, like, for the sake of having this tier apply to everybody and not just the high elo squad in chat or in the YouTube comment section rather. Garen's in A tier, pretty strong, pretty decent champion, solid, just can do a lot of things. His silence is pretty good. If you have the right macro and can just rotate properly, he can get a lot of work done. His split pushing is actually very powerful. Like, he's one of the few champions where, like, you can split push very solidly without taking teleport. Because, like, it's like the whole Quinn thing of, like, you know, you just take, like, a ton. You have so much move speed that you don't even need teleport. And Garen's, like, the same case where with Q, dead mass plate, and then you just run around the map like an animal. You push lanes and you just get to the Baron before anybody can do anything about it. So, yeah. Garen is quite strong if you have the macro to back him up. But I guess if we're talking about a lower rank game, he is good in that like he's just some brain to pick you can pick to basically breathe on the enemy and just kill them, right? That's also a possibility, but I'd say that is not really respecting what this champion can do and what his strengths are, which is just like being at the right place at the right time. That is where, you know, the good Garen players are. You know, get into that mid lane fight before it happens. Get into that jungle invade, you know, helping your own jungler, things like that. That's where this champion shines truly, in my opinion. Gnar has been good for a while, and I don't think he will be good because, like, in terms of ranged top laners, his range is just so small that like a lot of champions can just straight retaliate against him, right? He can't actually safely poke people, and his strength comes in that like he has no resources, so he can basically just exist in lane forever and just jump away with the second things get dangerous. He also gets basically free sustain from his passive form, so there's that as well. But he's just there to exist in lane, to make sure the opposing top laner doesn't get fed, and to basically help out in team fights, right? He can't exactly do that much work on his own of just the whole 1v9 thing. Gragas has such good matchups into a lot of these champions that like he just deserves a spot on this tier just because of how well he can lane, right? He has really the only thing that holds Gragas back is his mana pool in lane, honestly. Right, even his health pool, because his passive just gives him free sustain, right? And once he gets a few items and just recalls and then comes back to lane, his passive becomes like really powerful, where like he heals like 50, 100 health every time he uses an ability, which is completely crazy, right? You can't actually trade against him, you gotta just kill him, or you can't trade because he'll just heal it all back up. So yeah, like his belly slam is instant CC if you're right up against like the target. So even champions like a Fiora or something, or like a Darius, where they can kind of cancel it or like block it, it just doesn't work out because it's instant, right? It's instant. So it's like you just can't react against it. Like a properly played Gragas, you can basically play him into any matchup. Like he's very blind pickable. So if you're looking for something to just blind pick, he is perfect because not only does he have great matchups into a lot of champions, but also like he's not only played top lane, he's played anywhere on the map. He's played mid, jungle, support. So it's like even if you do first pick him, the enemy won't instantly know that you're playing Gragas top, right? As long as you don't make it obvious with the ban, of course. But yeah, he's a great champion to have as a first pick if you just need something to like okay, I want a champion that can't be countered. There you go. This is like it's like the I'd say Gragas is one of the best blind pick champions for top lane, or he is the best blind pick champ for top lane. I mean, we're not really dipping into some of these overpowered champions, by the way, right? So yeah. Graves, not Gragas, Graves. Graves is a great, I'd say, lane holder, right? He doesn't have the best matchups. He just has enough safety to farm up until he gets his first two. You need like playful work on him though, right? Like without that, he just can't really step up to a lot of champions because the fleet move speed actually helps him quite a bit, right? His range isn't that high, so the extra move speed helps him basically kite people and just dodge things with his E, that move speed. So yeah, but he can't really win lane or anything. He's just there to exist, farm lanes, and then be useful later. He's a pretty decent pick if you're autofilled, right? If you're kind of autofilled and you just need a champion that like is similar to other champions you play, then Graves is pretty good because he kind of functions very similarly to like just Graves outside of lane, right? You just play the exact same way. You just don't like, just do it consistently instead of just, fighting jungle camps. So yeah, right? If you're not that good at top lane, you're just filled there, you can pick up Graves and then just survive until later on. And the thing with Graves is that once you do get like your two items, like an LDR Eclipse or something like that, you get 2-3 items, then you just start popping people left and right. He's really powerful once he gets his items going. So Graves is a really solid champion. But, he's not a carry champion, not a 1v9 champion, and he is relatively easy to gank and kill, right? He can only dash a short distance. Level 6, he does get his ultimate to actually use as extra safety, but yeah, unless he gets a matchup where his W actually just cancels something, right, because of the vision, he's not going to do too much. Gwen is actually pretty strong. They nerfed her. No, they buffed her. They buffed her. Like they gave her less like cooldown on her ultimate, and they also made it so her E cooldown refunded a bit faster. Right? It cut. Let me just see here. Yeah, 60%. Yeah, okay. So they made it so that her E refunds 60% of the cooldown instead of 50% when you auto attack the enemy champions. So like, I would say Gwen is a pretty solid champion that you can 1v9 games with, because like once you get kills on Gwen and stuff, she's just so powerful because like you can basically just chop away at the enemy teams, and like your W acts as protection so that nobody can actually, you know, get close enough to kill you, because if they get close you just kill them and they can't just like pester you from distance like with most ranged top laners. So she's quite powerful if played correctly, and she is basically one of the few champions in here who can truly just 1v9 games, because with a lot of these champions, even though they can kinda 1v9, it's not like actually 1v9 because you still need a team to like kind of back you up. But Gwen actually like truly 1v9s. I'm just full screen the thing here. Yeah, there you go. I had my full window on, but yeah, she legit just 1v9s in team fights. So yeah, she has her power through there. Illaoi is a loyal only pick. Like, she's just not good. And until they basically rework her, I just don't see her being that powerful. Or they just buff something too much to the point where she's just completely broken. Irelia. I would say Irelia is a... She's still overpowered, I would say. Right? She's still overpowered, same as before. Her laning is just way too, free to be any lower. Maybe if they made it so that, like, it's a bit harder for her to play some matchups, then I would consider putting her lower, but as it stands, her top lane laning is just way too easy, and she has, like, really good matchups into champions who have good matchups into other champions, like some of the range champions and stuff on this tier list, right? She just completely destroys them because of her champion works. So yeah, Irelia is really just overpowered in lane, and like because how laning kind of decides what top lane does for the entire game, she is overpowered overall. Jax is really strong right now, and the extra buffs they gave him with like the stats actually changed up a lot of like fights for him, right? Because Jax is really just stat checking, right? Jax doesn't really outplay anything. Jax doesn't really do anything crazy. He is just straight up stat checking. Just go up against someone and just bash their brains in. So given that, right, the extra stats help him out a lot. Not to mention how like he has really good matchups into a lot of these champions, that specifically too. Like a lot of these characters, he can actually put up a really good fight. And if you know the matchup better than they do, you can absolutely just destroy them. So yeah, Jax is a really strong champion currently. And yeah, something that you want to have in your champion pool if you can, you know, play him, that is. Kayle. I'll put her in the situational tier. Like, obviously, if we're talking high only, she's, like, around here. Because, like, in higher ranks, you know, people can stall the game further. You know, your team won't just all die instantly and lose the game before you can come into control. Come into, like, you know, get powerful, basically. And also, like, in higher ranks, I guess you'd get more help and stuff, and you'd also be better at Kayle, because there are some matches you can just straight beat level 1. Kayle's level 1 is actually kind of overpowered. Like, she just beats Darius level 1 straight. She also beats, like, I think she also beats Riven level 1 too. Like, it's just absolutely crazy, but Kayle beats a lot of champions level 1 just straight up. So yeah, like, if you can kind of abuse some of her strength, she's really powerful, but there's just a gap between her power really early and her power really late, where it's like this abyss of like, you gotta help her or she's just gonna basically be useless for the entire game. So yeah, I mean, if the game goes long enough, which most low elo games do, you can certainly do a lot of work with her, but it's just not gonna happen. So it's a good situational pick if the situation arises. I think I missed someone. Jayce, yeah, I missed Jayce. Jayce did get quite like a solid nerf, but is that enough to put him in A tier? Not really, but like then I do feel the nerf, right? I actually felt that nerf, right? In a lot of the fights with Jayce, even just watching some of the Jayce clips, it's like, not clips, just watching some Jayce streams, it's like I really do sense that, okay, had he had that extra armor there, he wouldn't have died here. It's things like that, right? So the change they did to him was just they just cut out some of his base stats. And the thing with top lane is that because of how stat checky everything is, those base stats actually played like a big role in a lot of the fights, right? Jayce's whole thing is that like his range is super oppressive, and even if you do get in melee range with him, he will still like out-trade you in melee range, right? That's his thing. He beats you range and he beats you melee, but because they removed a bunch of his stats, if you actually get on top of him and just fight him straight up, he's just gonna die like quicker than before, right? Obviously, he's not like it didn't hit him so hard that he's unplayable or whatever. He's still pretty overpowered. And if you do have a skilled enough person on Jayce, you can get a lot of work done on top lane. It's just that like he just loses like 1 out of, let's say, 100 fights, you know, just straight up. So yeah, the fights that he almost like won, like just almost won by barely like surviving the last ignite, he could just straight lose now, if that makes sense. Okay, we got the Jayce done. Karma's a decent lane holder. And by the way, this is like the spot for all the supports. I can't really be bothered to just grab every support and say the same thing. She's just here to basically annoy the enemy top laner and just be supportive, right? Moonstone actually makes her really overpowered though. Karma, like, if you can actually get Moonstone on Karma, you heal so much, and it's just absolutely crazy. It's like, I played against it once, and it's like, she basically healed me like 200 every time she, like, tethered to me. It's like, some of the most oppressive, like, matches I've ever, like, some of the most oppressive, like, top lane fights I've ever done, because, like, she basically doubles her own health during the entire fight. So Karma is not that fun to fight once she gets to Moonstone. But until she gets to it, she's not that powerful. So I wouldn't say that like she's just some, you know, super extremely overpowered champion. She's just really, really strong. But that is pretty much it, right? Like she's just there to like hold lane. Once she gets to Moonstone, she's super strong. Her matches aren't that great. She does have a lot of range, so she can't just be a bit safe, but you just hold her, you just pick her top lane to basically exist in lane and then fill a role for the team later on. Okay, Kled. Kled is a pretty strong champion, but as like his role is the same as before. He's only good against like champions, against players that don't really know how to play the matchup, right? If he gets fed, he can very easily 1v9 games, but the thing is, right, in a high elo setting, almost all of these champions can basically put up a very good fight or just straight up beat the Kled, right? So it's like, again, if you're fighting someone who doesn't know what they're doing, 1v9 the game, easy, right? Like, it's like, if you're fighting a top laner who doesn't know what they're doing, you can beat everybody on the enemy team, even if the rest of the players are actually good players. But if the top laner is actually solid at the game and knows the matchup, then you can't really achieve that much on Kled, right? Like I said, his matchups aren't that great if these guys know what they're doing. Kennen. I'll put him in the counter picks still. Like, I've seen more and more like Kennen play lately, but that's probably only because I play Darius and it gets counter picked against me. But like, I would say if you counterpick the right matchup on Kennen and get to the point in the game where you got your portability, you got your Zana's Hourglass, then it's perfect, right? Because at that point, after that, you're a solid team fighting threat. You can stun an entire portion of the enemy team, and then Zana's Hourglass to be safe, so your own team at the back can basically sweep up the fight. But the thing is, until he gets both of those items, he's not that strong. Because like, he both needs Protoball to actually get close enough to do things and not get CC'd instantly, and Zhonya's Hourglass to actually survive, because Kennen is not that tanky, right? And also, right, he can't get ganked quite easily because he doesn't actually have a dash to get away. He actually has to both stun the champion and lightning rush away. And during this encounter, if the champion he stuns gets any CC on him, then he has to flash to avoid the jungler who's going to CC him as well, right? If you get what I'm, if you can kind of visualize it, to escape someone, he has to both stun them and lightning rush away. But like, if he catches any CC during the lightning rush, it's over. Right? He has to flash and then possibly even die if he's like pushed up enough on the lane, right? So I would only pick Kennen into like the perfect counter pick that will let you actually scale up and get to the points of the game where you are a bit strong. Oh, Lillia. It just annoys me to put this champion on this tier list because I don't think she's a top laner. She's just like, she's only good in like a low elo setting where you're fighting someone who actually has never read this champion's abilities before. Or any person who knows her abilities, just reads them once, will just destroy her completely, right? It's just not a champion. And yeah, she's horrible in top lane. I'll put her in horrible just because I like hate that I'm being asked this over and over again. Like every tier list, people just ask me in the comments, she's not a top laner. Jesus Christ, boys. Come on, stop. Okay, Lucian. I'll put Lucian in super niche because like he's just not as good of a range top laner as the other range top laners. He just can't like put space between him and the opposing top laner. Like, he can't peel himself. That makes sense, right? He can like, he can dash away. But the thing that makes ranged top laners overpowered in top lane, not overpowered, but just strong in top lane, is that not only do they have a way of just like dashing back, but they have a way of just peeling themselves, like Jayce knockback, Vayne condemn, Quinn like headbutt thing where she just hits you and then just knocks herself back. It's like you need these kinds of abilities, and Lucian just does not have that. So if he gets caught and the enemy champion, any top laner just gets on top of him, he's just completely just doomed. Like he cannot peel himself at all. So if you can pick him into the right matchup and get that, yeah, sure, you can kind of 1v9 in the game, but those are a bit of a rare circumstances, aren't they? Lee Sin, I'll put Lee Sin into the super niche because, like, even though he's not like an overpowered top lane anymore, I mean, I guess he was overpowered just into the jungler role, but like there was a period last season where he was just like that champion in top lane, just completely overpowered S tier. They have nerfed him ever since, but I do still think that there is some room to play Lee Sin in the top lane. It's just pretty difficult to do so, right? Because you got to be pretty solid at Lee Sin, because you get into like the whole Yasuo situation of like you have to basically outplay every single circumstance to come out ahead, and if you don't, you just get destroyed. Malphite, I'll put him in the counter pick. He has a bunch of pretty good matchups up here. Jax being a big example, right? But yeah, because of his attack speed slow, just doing a ton of work against all these attacking champions, Malphite has a pretty good role in counter because he's not just a lane holder. You just pick him to make life hell for someone. And yeah, when my Darius gets banned and I see like a Jax or something, I just pick Malphite to force the dodge, and it works like every time. Maokai, horrible champion, not really good top lane anymore. He can't get anything done. He's way too slow, and his matchups are horrible. Everybody just completely destroys him. Mordekaiser. Now the buffs in 12.8 to Mordekaiser are actually just huge. What they're doing is they're basically giving him back the passive move speed thing he had a while ago. Like if you guys remember, Mordekaiser gets past like move speed when he gets those 3 hits out and he starts doing the AoE damage. And before it used to scale, right? They removed that, he became horrible, but they're adding it back again. So I think that his move speed, passive move speed scaling is going to be so huge to make him better, because it's like 3%, 6%, and 9%, right? It's like, it's really massive. And top of all the buffs before, 9 buffs in a row to make him good, huh? But yeah, I mean, because of that, I think he's going to go up from low elo only to a B tier pick, because that's enough to make him really solid, in my opinion, right? Because that is the part of his weakness that just was completely crippling. The lack of move speed made it so horrible to play him, because not only does he have like no mobility, but like Mordekaiser has to stand still to actually cast his Q, right? His most powerful ability, his Q, he has to actually stand still to cast it. Which basically, what that does is it gives the opponents a lot of time to dodge it. Because, like, let's say you have a Fiora who has her damage stuck to her movement spell, right? She can both dash and do damage, but Mordekaiser can't. He has to stand still to do it. Okay, like a Darius Q, he can move during it. Like, he just doesn't have the luxury of both moving and doing damage with his Q, which is his main damage tool. And that leaves him open to a lot of outplaying, but maybe with the extra move speed, you can kind of better position himself to land the Q or whatever, right? Because, like, you know, if you're right in someone's face, the Q kind of goes like a cone, so they can more easily dodge it. But if you kind of walk back and Q them with that part of the Q, then it's more likely to hit. Things like that, right? The move speed is going to be definitely huge, in my opinion. And I'll actually probably pick him up more again on my main if the changes are nice. Nasus. Nasus is actually quite a good counter pick, in my opinion, nowadays. The, I don't know, like, where I got the idea in my head, but it's like, I've seen him in some matchups where he just completely destroys them just because of how good his W is, right? Now, Nasus is going to get completely just cyberbullied off of the face of the earth in high elo, because Nasus actually has no way of protecting himself from a gank, right? He is such easy free jungler food, and his CC is just slowing one guy, but the other guy's going to come in, CC you, and that guy's going to just flash in and CC as well, and you're just completely dead. Right? And a lot of the Nasus players don't even take flash, they go like ghost teleport. He actually kind of needs teleport too to actually survive in lane. It's just, there's a lot of things that make him a low elo pick, but because there are some games where he can basically be a W bot, he's a solid counter pick, in my opinion. So yeah, there are some matches even in high elo they can pick Nasus into, but just you know, with care, right? He's not a solid champion to play into every single game. Just let's say you pick him into 5-10% of your games if he's perfect. Let's see here. Did I miss anybody? Nope. I'll just put Neeko in the super niche tier. Super niche range champion. She's not that good because she actually has no dash or whatever. So if the enemy just gets on top of her, right, she's just dead. Because, again, she has no dash. She can't actually dash away from the enemy to, like, put space between her and the enemy. Same kind of issues with Lucian, really. Kinda. Ornn. Now, this might be a bit controversial, but I think Ornn is just straight up overpowered. In my opinion. Like, I used to put him in A tier, but, like, just, I don't know, man. Because, like, the more I think about it, the less weaknesses and etc. I find in Ornn, right? He's an amazing team fighter. He has a lot of great matchups. His laning is just so amazing for, like, a tank even. Because, like, he not only does a ton of damage, not only does he set up CC, but he's, like, actually tough to kill in a gank, right? His W Flame Breath actually makes him invulnerable. So if you are good enough to expect the CC, you can just block it and just not get affected by it, and then use your dash to get away, being free from the CC. It's like Mundo on a crack, where, like, not only can he do the same thing of just being immune to CC and getting away, but he can also do damage, get kills, out-trade people with his flame breath and the auto attack, and then just get away, because the stun is going to make it so that they can't actually retaliate, right? I guess some champions, if you pick into him, they do make his life a hell, like a hellish nightmare, but that's how it is in top lane. I don't think there are any champions, aside from maybe Gragas, who, like, don't have counter picks, right? There are some picks that make Ornn's life a nightmare, but it's just, like, he's got it all, man. And the best part about Ornn is that, like, he's such a sleeper pick, right? He's such a sleeper pick. It's like nobody even, like, considers him that strong because nobody plays him. So he's a really good champion to just have in your champion pool and to just crush games with, because no one's going to nerf this guy, right? He's going to be, like, sleeper OP until the end of time. I'll put Olaf in there. He's still horrible tier because this patch is not the patch that they're doing the rework on him, right? I think that, yeah, they're doing the Swain rework this patch, but not the Olaf rework this patch. So he stays in horrible. But man, once that rework comes out, I'm going to love to see how that goes. That's going to be epic. Pantheon. Strong tier. I'd say the changes were pretty good, right? If you guys didn't see the changes, they basically, like, reworked his Q. They didn't rework, they just made it so that the hitbox is thinner, but also longer. So if you're a better player, it's a bit more rewarding, right? So it's like, I would say he's not in the overpowered tier at all, but a lot of people think Pantheon's a horrible champion, and that's just completely stupid. Pantheon's great if you have the skill to play him, because Pantheon is actually not that, like, easy to play, right? There are very specific things you gotta block. The very specific ways you gotta use your E to basically, like, not get murked in 2 seconds, because that's his only defensive tool, his E. And if you don't use it properly, you just get one shot. It's like, there's a lot to this champion that meets the eye, and if you can kind of grasp it all and master it, he's very solid to play. Poppy. Same thing as before. They did kind of change how her ultimate works. They just made it stronger. And they also kind of buffed her W cooldown. But it's like, those didn't really address any of her weaknesses, but they just made it so that she's even more of a counter pick to the things she countered before, right? So yeah, she's still the same role. If you're up against a heavy dash team, not a blink, dash team, then she can basically get a lot of work done. And she's also great if the enemy team has, like, a melee carry, in a way, because her ultimate just counters that kind of thing. So if it's somebody who's melee in your champion's rage, she can just ult them away, and once that champion's out of that fight, the entire enemy team is just defenseless, right? So, like, she can get a ton of work done against the right composition, right? So she's a solid counter pick to have in your back pocket. Quinn. I struggle to put her in, like, overpowered. Like, she's really strong right now, I'd say, but, like she's kind of just reaching Akshan tier, I'd say, honestly. Like, she's also a sleeper pick like Ornn, where she's just overpowered and no one's gonna notice it. But it's like Akshan, but her roam starts at a point, and you can kind of bully her until that point. I guess I'll put her in B tier, because there are some of these matchups do kind of mess her up, right? Like the Irelias and stuff just completely destroy her. I guess, yeah. because like her dash is kind of like around the enemy champion, so she can't exactly get away once she is caught in like a sticky situation. So because of that, I will just put her in A tier. But like, man, if you pick her into the right matchup, you can just straight up 1v9 the game. It is absolutely crazy what this champion can do, given the right circumstances. Renekton's a pretty strong pick. He takes a lot of skill to play, but as I said in the previous patch notes, Borg returning has led to Renekton returning. He's obviously not going to see that much play because he's mostly like picked because of his W stun being consistent and because of if the player can actually play Renekton. So yeah, he's not going to be picked that much in solo queue. But I'm pretty sure that like a Renekton one trick can have a good time playing this champion and just climbing because he's a strong champion right now. If played right, of course. Rengar. No. Rengar. Rengar is a solid B tier champion. There are some matchups that make life incredibly hell for him, like Darius, Trundle, Kled. It's like if they pick him into you, you are just gonna get destroyed completely. But it's like you can also kind of play around them and not die. There's that as well. It's just like you need to be a hyper one trick to play him, and you gotta play these matchups properly, and. So it's like he's just a situational pick. Now on the plus side, he gets a lot of versatility in his builds. He can flex a lot of build, and it's like just fill a lot of different roles in his team. He can either be the DPS, he can kind of be a bit more of like a carry assassin sort of role, or you can also just play like a tank CC disrupt by abusing your W. It's just there's a lot you can do on this champion if you have the imagination for it, basically. So yeah. And his roam potential is also quite powerful. It's like if Rengar is off of top lane, you gotta just spam ping like crazy because he is going to be killing someone if they don't just instantly back off and go under their turret. Riven is super, super overpowered. God tier. I don't think I need to say anything here. Anybody, like, even the Rivens themselves claim that she's overpowered, right? It's like she's just overpowered, right? Everybody knows this. I hope I don't have to explain it. Rise, horrible, poo-poo tier. Rumble, if you can use his abilities properly, his shields and his poke and his flame breath earlier on to basically get prio, he's a pretty decent pick actually. And he does a lot of underrated amount of damage. If you can get like all of your abilities while you're overheating and also like line an ultimate with Ignite Electrocute, you can just straight one-shot someone with Rumble, right? He does a ton of damage. And once you win lane, Rumble is actually a team fighting monster because of how much area he can just straight deny with his ultimate. So fights around Baron, fights in the jungles are just going to be a nightmare to play out if Rumble's in them, right? But it's like, he takes a lot of skill to play. He's also kind of situational in that he just needs someone he can straight just outrange earlier on. If it's someone who can just jump on him and bash his brains in, he can't really do that much. And also, like, when he's in, like, the normal state where he's not overheating. Okay. I don't really know the names of his like zones, but there's the zone where it's like nothing's happening from 0 to 50, and then there's the danger zone from 50 to 100 where all his abilities do a ton of damage, and then overheated I think is when the full thing is red, right? So it's like when it's the normal zone, the first 50 points of his useless bar, he's very vulnerable. It's kind of like a Yasuo after he throws his tornado, where it's like after he tosses that, he's just weak and you go on him and kill him. Same with Rumble, right? Once he's here, you can't exactly like just bash his brains in because he can't really retaliate too much. So it's like he can very much lose prio at that point, and after he loses prio, it's not going to be easier to gain it back, even with like the danger zone damage. Danger zone damage, that just sounds cool. Set is like in his worst point. Like he is like having the worst time he's ever had, in my opinion, right? Like before, he was always just viable in some way, but it's like they kind of messed up a Gore Drinker, so Set doesn't have like a really good mythic now, right? He does not have that mythic you can just build every single game, so that kind of sucks. Not to mention how like, you know, a lot of matchups just kind of kite him like a dog, so like it's really difficult to just pull him off against a top laner who's mobile, who can kind of just dash in and out of like that. And it's like, you know, his cooldowns are also super like abusable as well. It's just, if the fight gets to like a low auto attack fest where it's like everyone's just brain dead hitting each other, he does kind of shine because he gets like twice the hits as everybody else. But if everybody's cool, calm, and collected, then he's gonna have a rough time in lane against anybody competent. He's quite good in team fights though, right? His skill floor of like the least useful he can be is quite like is not that low, right? He can get a lot of work done, especially if the enemy team has like a solid front line and he can just ult into the back line, just get a lot of damage off like that. He's pretty solid in low elo, but it's just like not so much in high elo, which is why he is B tier instead of A tier or S tier. Shen is overpowered. What's new? Singed, I'll put him in the super niche category, right? It's like the whole playstyle, just Predator running around the map. It works sometimes. Sometimes it's complete grief. It's just... that's just uncharted territory, man. I'm not going to go in there. Like, the Singed Mafia will kill me. Alright, Sion. Sion's overpowered. I think that this much is clear. With, like, Bals's adventures, it really just, like... He's really good at abusing this champion, but, like, there's just some things in Sion's kit that makes it so that, like, it's overpowered when there's a point where dying is worth it, you know? And not dying for a banner or whatever, you just die for a CC. Not CS. You just die to kill like 2 waves of CS and to put the wave in a position where you can just TP back and then you just do the same thing over again. It's like, he gets value from his W, his death timer is shorter than anybody else's because his death timer starts when he dies. So during his entire zombie state, he can just keep trading and keep damaging, keep hitting the minions, and then he's just back instantly. Whereas most other champions actually have a death timer to work around. It's just, there's a few things in his kit that make it so that like he's just completely overpowered and he kind of just straight breaks the game, honestly. Because like he doesn't really treat the game like any other champion. It's just weird. So yeah. Swain. Swain's getting like a pretty big rework, right? They're reworking a lot with Swain. Like before he's horrible, but like they put a lot of power in his ultimate now. Like it does more damage. You don't have to charge it up anymore. You can just do it faster. And his ultimate goes on until the end of time. You can just keep healing and healing and healing and healing like forever, right? They also buffed his Q quite a bit, so that's quite nice. It doesn't go through minions. And his E is the same. The main issue I'm running into is that like although the buffs are quite huge, they just don't hit any of the parts where he's struggling in top lane. In that like his Q's like, you know, his range is super short, right? That's one big thing. Like his E is super slow and it's kind of tricky to land. It's very easy to avoid. He can't really defend himself if you get on top of him. Like I guess if you have phase rush, you can kind of just like run, but the thing is he can't even proc phase rush like quickly because he has to both land his WQ auto attack or EQ auto attack or just auto once Q and auto again, which like he can't really proc like a rise in 2 seconds where it's like E auto W and that's all like in 1 second, right? In like a microsecond he just does all that rise and he just phase rush runs away, whereas he takes time to proc phase rush. It's just awkward, right? I'll have to see how this impacts him. He'll probably be better in like a mid or something, but I don't see him being better in top lane. But he's certainly better than he used to be because he actually has like a scaled up form to scale up into right now with his ultimate, so that's quite nice. Silas, he just exists to counter Malphite, I guess. Just horrible, man. Tahm Kench. He's actually still playable, right? In super niche. Obviously, he just gets completely destroyed in all-ins, right? He can't all-in people. Like, unless you kind of just cheese your way through some mechanic to just avoid something, you cannot fight people as Tahm Kench, because, like, them removing his shield just made it so that, like, you fight someone who not only understands how to, like, you know, like, kill you, how to cancel your escape, but you also fight someone who blocks your tongue lash with like the minions, because that's like his most powerful thing, just the tongue lash. If you can't land it, he's just doomed. So it's like you fight someone who not only just dodges that with the minions, but also just cancels your dash away. It's like you better rely on some stupid cheese like the waves pushing into you, and you just eat the champion and spit them out under the turret. But even then, it's like, you know, it's so situational and just weird. And it's like, if the person sees it coming, you now have to tank like 3-4 waves of minions and lose half your health, you know? So it's like, he's really tricky to play now that he doesn't have his, you know, BS brain dead shield spam thing. it's just a lot of tricks and just cheese, but he's still playable, I'd say, in top lane. You just have to basically you just gotta go full cheese mode, and then just constantly rely on tricking people, right? Just trick. It's like you just I guess it's kind of like a Yasuo-ish thing where you're constantly just outplaying people, but it's not just outplaying. It's just it's literally just tricking them. It's like you play Tahm Kench if you're like a magician or something. It's just like, oh, you didn't know I could do that, did you? It's like constantly just that, man. But yeah. Teemo's just a low elo pick. I never see this champion in high ranks. It's like it just never, man. Nobody ever picks him. Like he's just he's way too immobile to be like an actual properly played range top laner. And he is such easy jungler food pre-6. Post-6, if he's smart, he can basically just spread out his shrooms all over the jungle entrances to top lane so that you can't actually get on top of him and gank him. But even then, man, let's say you get lane ganked, it's just his immobileness makes him open to so many ganks. It's just it's just unplayable into some champions. Trundle. I'd say Trundle is on the up and up. He's I don't know where to put him. He's on either of these. I'll put Trundle in strong, I guess. Because his early power is so strong that he's just universally just kills everyone, right? Trundle level 1 with Lethal Tempo Ignite is just if you lose as that, there's just something wrong with you, because it's arguably some of the most powerful, it's just straight up the most powerful level 1 in the entire game, right? You just can't fight him at all, right? You can't get in melee range to just exchange auto attacks because he just straight Qs you and that slows and he just autos over and over again. His split push is just so powerful too, right? Because he just kills turrets so quickly with his W and his key, and if you get some Sheen item and Homebreaker, man, you're eating turrets. And it's his side lane 1v1 is also really, really strong too, right? Because Trundle's abilities are not only good in team fights, but his ultimate and then just the way he just spams auto attacks makes it so that you can build him straight just for 1v1, right? With Hullbreaker, Triforce, just build him just for 1v1 and still be good in kind of team fights. Obviously not an all-out team fight, because if he gets caught, he just gets killed instantly. But if it's kind of a cheese fight where it's people are fighting here, people are fighting, he can very much just walk in and just sweep up everybody, right? So it's he's quite strong in a solo queue setting, in my opinion. If everybody's kind of knows what they're doing, I think he falls down to B tier, right? But it's if we're talking just a random solo queue game, nobody knows what they're doing, people just fight him earlier on, in a skirmish, and he just kills everyone, he's quite strong. I've seen some Shyvana tops, actually. I don't know where. I'll just put her in super niche, I guess. I've seen her play top lane nowadays. It's because of how much move speed and stuff she has, she can basically just and her flame thing actually goes through minions, right? It doesn't go through champions, so you can't just have your CC if you're trying to kill a cannon, it can't just be blocked. But it's she's resourceless. She can basically keep herself at arm's length with the minion wave, just go hit it and just run away with her I don't know, 400 or 500 move speed, and she can also get a lot of poke in. Her dragon form with her ultimate is so overpowered. It's just insane, because her flame breath thing, not only does it do a ton of damage, but it's so easy to land. It's if you just point it in the general direction of the enemy, it'll 100% just land. It's impossible to miss. So it's I guess if you can survive until then, Jesus Christ, the Red Bull. If you can survive until then, it's pretty powerful. But your first 6 levels are just so scavengy and just oh my god, I'm just trying to survive type beat, Tryndamere. I'd say Tryndamere is still in the overpowered category, right? Their nerfs were pretty huge, but they weren't enough to basically knock him out of the meta of the game. He's still super playable and just you can get a lot of work done. You just can't be as stupid as before. You gotta actually be smart with him nowadays, which I know intelligence on Tryndamere. Whoa, what are you talking about, bro? But it's it's just how it is right now. Urgot. I'd say Urgot is in B tier. In a high elo game where everything's a bit consistent and controlled, he is quite powerful. But unfortunately, I wouldn't really rank him too high. If we're talking your regular solo queue match, because it's where Urgot is that aside from just level 1 cheesing with his E, he just can't lane and just match up to anybody in lane at all. He's just kind of weak. And if he misses his E, he just instantly just loses the all in or potentially dies if he whiffs it completely and then just like goes into the enemy minions and is just that far away from his turret. Yeah, he's just dead, man. He is a bit more useful when he gets to level 6 to his jungler because he can't just get an ult out and just guarantee a kill, things like that, and then just use that feared AoE to just like mess up a fight so that his teammates can pick up kills. But it's like we're talking like a game that's a bit more controlled, a bit more like calm, where people kind of know what they're doing and they just don't for crazy things. But it's like, if you're kind of like left to the wolves by your jungler, like you're weak-sided, you're not going to have a good time as an Urgot at all. Like he's just so easy to just murk. It's insane. And it's like he's not even that much of a threat until like later on when he can, like get his items and stuff and then get that W maxed out. And like into some lanes, maxing W is just suicidal. So it's like sometimes you're gonna get a 7, sometimes you're gonna get like 11. It's just so much situationalness with him. Just makes him tough. And also his shotgun needs to scale with his levels. So it's like you gotta wait for those to scale up as well. A lot of ifs and buts and whens that just hold our boy back. Vayne, just like the perfect, or I guess in like the worst way, right? The perfect range top laner. She's got the dashes. She's got the move speed. She's got the self peel. She's got invisibility. You know, it's like percentage health 2 damage. So she just beats everybody who builds health. It's like just perfect, right? So if you need a range top laner to have in your back pocket to just bully some of these boys, she is it. We're towards the end of the champion list, so I gotta just pick out the champions from what's left. Vladimir. I'd say Vladimir's a lane holder. They added a bunch of armor to him actually, which is absolutely huge. Your armor is like your premier defensive stat in top lane. I don't think it's enough to push him over the edge, right? He can't obviously put up a fight against some of these stronger champions, but he is just like, he can hold lane and then be a monster once he gets like 2 items. But you gotta just wait until then, right? Volibear is just for counter picking. He's a tank in the body of a juggernaut or vice versa, whatever, right? He has to get fed to actually get work done. And the thing is, right, in top lane, there are some matchups that just completely ruin your life. So if you can pick him into like a Set or like a Darius or some champion where you can just get your whole combo off and just destroy them, then he's perfect, right? But a lot of these other matchups just completely destroy him, and they're too mobile for him to do anything against. And also, like, like God forbid, like a Fiora like predicts your Q, you are screwed. So yeah, he's a lot better as a jungler right now, because he can actually use his mobility and stuff to actually run up to people, gank them and kill them, and use your ultimate to help dive. But him being confined to top lane makes it so that, like, he is just at the mercy of like the champion select. Warwick is a super niche champion. I'll put him in the horrible. Just like, aside from your bronze 2 match, like, he is just completely worthless. 1, he's jungler food, right? Like, unless somebody doesn't know that Warwick can actually bite and get on the other side of you, right? He is straight up just jungler food. He can't really tank too much. He can't really do that much CC. His best CC, which is his ultimate, can just be cancelled by anything, and there's so much CC that it's like, unless we're talking like a 1v1 or like a 2v2, he is useless, right? Like, let's say it's like top laner jungler, you wait for them to use their CC and then you ult, right? It's like, he just gets kills in lane. That is it. That is all Warwick does. He doesn't do that much damage. He's not that tanky. He's not that good at roaming, because he literally just announces his roams, right? It's like, he just doesn't do anything that well outside of lane. It's like, it's so rare for a Warwick to just 1v9 in a game. So that the best you're going to do is just make sure that the enemy top laner is just worthless, and then just go along with the fights that your teammates are fighting successfully, right? But yeah, like, he's just so like cancelable and just like interruptible that I just don't see him being like a very powerful pick, not to mention how accessible lifesteal is, so he's not doing that well on that front. Wukong is actually pretty strong right now. They buffed his Q, which is like it's like one of his strongest fights in lane, not it's one of his strongest abilities in lane, not because of like, I'm not saying that his like, his W or his E are useless or whatever, but it's like the auto reset of Q And against a lot of these champions that he just straight outranges, he actually uses that extra Q range to just kind of poke them down. It's like, it's actually a pretty solid solid buff to Wukong. Now, one big thing to mention is that like his W buff of like he can dash through walls with it is mostly a buff to Wukong jungle, right? It's like now he's playable in the jungle role. And I've seen it quite a few times and it's good in some circumstances, but yeah, right? Wukong jungle is now playable and you can kind of do a lot of work with him. Now, as a top laner, the W crossover wall buff is actually quite significant. It lets you dash over some walls, escape some plays, just lets you get a lot more work done in terms of like, there are some scenarios where you're just stuck. Now that you just aren't stuck anymore, right? So that's pretty good. Yeah, he's a solid A3 champion, and he's quite simple to play, so I recommend picking him up if you need a solid champion to just pick up and play quite easily. Yasuo, horrible, just can't survive in top lane. Yone, pretty strong. He just gets destroyed by a lot of champions that have more meat on their bones. If you can cheese them with like level 1 lethal tempo type BS, then yeah, he's gonna have a great time. But if you can't, goodbye, Yone. Who's left? Yorick, I guess, is the last one left. B tier. Yorick is just like, you gotta pick him into something that you can win lane against. If you don't win lane, you get destroyed. And there's a lot of champions that just straight destroy you that are like up here. Like you get put up against a Tryndamere, like goodbye, right? Like it's like there's nothing you can do against Tryndamere. You know? There's just nothing you can do against the champions that beat you. They don't just beat you, man. They just destroy you. So it's like, with how counterpickable Yorick is, it's like, I'll actually just put him in counterpick. I'll just put him in straight in counterpick. Because, like, if you don't just straight counterpick people and win lane, Yorick is such a nightmare to play. Because, like, when you're playing Yorick in a side lane, you kind of have to be fed, right? If you're weak as Yorick in side lane, not only are you going to get shreked by the enemy top laner, but it's like, if the enemy team just roams on you, they're going to kill you in 2 seconds, right? So it's like, and there's not enough jungle farming or cheese farming in the world that can basically, you know, quickly get you fed enough to actually match up, right? Yorick doesn't exactly, like, escape ganks. He just survives them, if that makes sense, right? When people collapse on him, he just runs away, throws things at the enemy, and then just barely survives. If you're not fed, you're not going to be able to do that. So it's like, I would only pick him into a matchup where he's strong. Because if he does win lane and he gets fed, you can actually do all that stuff that's like survive ganks, just take down turrets in seconds, do that, do this, do that. But it's like, it all relies on you like not being like side laneable against, right? So it's like, I would never first pick Yorick, just never. It's like, it's not even like difficult to play some of these counter champions into him. Like it's just, it's so easy to just pick Tryndamere and just destroy him. But yeah, I guess for the sake of Loila, I'll put him in B tier. But if we're talking high level games, he's kind of pick tier only. All right, that was an hour. Jesus Christ, my endurance is being tested right here. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.